So I'd like to welcome you to Google Drawing, A Picture is Worth 1,000 Words with Christina Zazowski. It will be a really interesting evening learning about the features of Google Drawing and all of the classroom applications. So it's always wonderful to have people from all over Ontario joining us for these OTS Connect sessions. And now I'm going to turn it over to Christina for your awesome evening.
Thank you, Mally. Thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. I'm glad you can be with us. And hopefully you'll learn quite a lot or just get some ideas for possibilities in your classroom. Excuse me. And I will tell you where this workshop came from or where it was, I guess, inspired by. But if you were with me, I don't know if anybody here was with me in the last session I did. If you were, maybe you can give a thumbs up, because this is actually where I put in a proposal to do this. It was because people had asked about just doing a separate Google Drawing. So Angie, I see that you were with us last time. Thank you. And I don't know if there was anyone else. But what happened was this came from just people wanting to know more about Google Drawing. I think it's one of those tools that don't get talked about from Google. It gets overlooked. But I use it a lot in my classroom, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert in any way. I'm not trained in Google Drawing, but it comes out of my passion for, of course, learning how to use it in different ways. So everything I share with you tonight are things that I have tried in my classroom that I've created, and you're welcome to the templates I've provided. So anything, and if you just need some help with anything, there's lots of time for questions, I hope. But I have lots of samples to share with you and lots of ideas, even one that I've never tried. If you're teaching art or if you want to dive into this realm, there's even a way to do drawings on Google Drawing, so like actual picture portraits. So this is out of my realm, but I will show you the video as to how you can get some info on that. So let's get started. My name is Christina Jonjewski-Rodney, and I teach with the Hamilton Board, Hamilton Catholic. And I will tell you that if you look at your screen right now, everything that I'm sharing with you tonight is available in both my slideshow and a Google Doc, so that you can get to quick links. In those links, you'll also find, I even threw in a couple of tutorials from other people that I found on the net, some educators that I follow. One has a good little video if you want to go back and look at how to use these tools or the tools within drawing. As Mally has said in the chat, you'll get these resources in the recording tomorrow, so you'll have access to all of it. So quickly, a bit about me, because you might hear some background noise. I am an English teacher. I have been teaching with Hamilton Catholic for about 13 years, and I taught some ESL before that. I've always been passionate about teaching, I suppose. Taught dancing for a long time. But my family, and it's funny, I didn't put a picture of me, but this is the big family here. My husband here and my daughter Maya, who's actually asleep now, so that should be okay. But you may hear the two fur kids in the background, so I do apologize if you hear barking or anything at any time. They do look like bears. I guess we could do a quick, anybody know what kind of dogs they are before I say? I could tell you, but it's unusual that people know what kind of dogs these are. If anyone wants to drop it in the chat. But we call these our fur kids because they're about the size of humans. They weigh in about 150 pounds. They are Leonbergers, so if you've never heard of them before, they kind of look like lions. So I apologize if you hear our furry friends in the background. As you know, if you try to keep dogs away from you, they get very sad, so we can't even keep them in another room because they just want to be with us. So they will be walking around a little bit. And I understand if you have to walk away at any time, maybe just set yourself to away, because I know that everyone has lots of things going on. You're joining us from home, so thank you. So what I want to say is where we're going with this tonight is that I'm going to start with I'm going to go back a slide here. I'm going to start with the basics, and then from that, just explore some of the uses, but I am going to show you how to use this tool, and I hope that our web touring will work nicely for us so that you can be actually in a Google Doc with me, and we can do some collaborating ourselves so you can actually see what it would look like for you and your students. And then look at lots of different examples, different lessons, ways that you could use this, and then give us some time to hopefully tinker so that you yourself can, try these things out on your own. So just keeping in mind that's the direction we're headed for this evening. And at any time, if you have a question, throw it in the chat or throw up a hand. If you want to get on the mic, I'm happy to, that would be great as well. So real quick, if you're not familiar with Google Drawing, what it is, it's actually a web-based diagramming software. It's supposed to be, I guess, used more for diagramming, developed by Google. And what I love about it, of course, is that it's free, and that it has a collaboration piece. So what I love about all the Google tools are that we can collaborate. So with students, with my fellow teachers, we can co-create, and of course updates automatically. So this has had so many uses in my classroom, and I'm always curious to see how other people are using it. But there's lots of opportunity for flowcharts, you can use this for diagramming, you can use it for concept maps, but I use it in a lot of other ways. So. And then I'll get into that in a little bit. But what I am curious about is if we could maybe give a thumbs up if you're actually already using Google Drawing, if you've tried it. So if you can, so if you want to give a thumbs up, Vicki, is that a thumbs up or a question? I'm not sure, I just wanted to check. Oh, okay, so some people have not, so okay, this will be good. So even if you have used it, I am going to go over the basics, so bear with me, but just to get everybody started. So let's jump in here. So this is how you access it. If you have never accessed Google Drawing before, it lives in the same spot as all of your other great Google tools. So from Drive, you simply go to Drive, you click on New, and it's hidden. So what people don't know is that it's under More. So it doesn't appear as the first 3 tools in Google. It is under the More button. So then you have to click on Drawing from there. So simple as that. And why I love it, some of the things that I will say I use it for is that I can make, and I do this often when I use it, is I make a template. I set the template to anyone can view, and I will show you this in a moment, but so that my students can just make a copy of it. So if you're using Google Classroom, this is super easy for you. I don't have Google Classroom. We are an Office 365 board, so we're using OneDrive and all that good stuff in PowerPoint. So we don't have Google Classroom. We use the LMS. So this is where it's nice to be in a Google board because you can just have students make a copy very easily. But it's great for class collaboration. So just making that copy, students don't have to start from scratch. And I think that's where I seem to get the best results when first using this in a class is because I create a template, a simple template. And then of course students always take off from there and show their creativity. So this is one of the things I love about something like Drawing, any of the Google tools, but this is what I do with Drawing. And so I will talk about the Canvas. The Canvas itself is a scalable vector graphic background. And so what you see is a bunch of squares. Oh, I think someone's got there. There we go. Okay, so what you'll see is a bunch of squares, and so you can change this. It's actually something you can size. You can make it completely customized. And what's nice about this is it opens up possibilities for both print and online. So if you're looking to make some really neat handouts with your class, then you can set it to a page that will actually print appropriately. Or if you're using it just for online, you can really customize this, and I'm going to show you some of those examples. Okay, so how do you set the canvas size? In a moment, I'm going to take you in and show you in the live web tour. But what you need to do is when you get into Google Drawing, if you've opened up a Google Drawing from your account, from your Drive, sorry, then you click on File, and what you need to do right away, depending on what you're using this for, is you need to set the page parameters because it is not automatically set to an 8.5 by 11. It's actually got a weird default setting. So if you're looking to print with your class and you want ease of use, then make sure that you change that. If you don't care about printing, if you're not printing it and creating a photo like a 4x6 or whatever it is, then don't worry about this. You can set it to whatever size you want. And there's some fun things that you can do with this as well. So I'm going to show you that. So what I'd like to do in just a moment is actually show you these two tools. What's nice too is you can play with the background, pictures, everything you put in here is completely customizable, and so this becomes a really neat space for so many different lessons. So we're going to try this out right now through a web tour, and hey, please bear with me. Hopefully everybody's computers or their internet is working. This won't lag. I'll try not to move too quickly, but I'm going to take you into a Google Drawing right now. So hopefully everyone can see this. And so if you're, hopefully you can see me mousing around, or you can see my mouse right now. I'm just going to click on File right now. And just maybe a thumbs up if you're okay with this right now, if you can see my page. If you can just drop in the chat. There we go. Awesome. Great stuff. Okay, so when you click on File, what I was talking about is you want to scroll down to the Page Setup button. So when you're in Page Setup, as you see, I've already changed mine to 8.5 by 11, but I'm going to change that right now. I had to do that through Custom. The standard is 4 by 3. I don't know why, that's their default, but that's what it is. So I would change it if I'm using a print. If I did 11 by 8.5, that's going to print in landscape. And then what I just did recently, actually for an activity I'm going to be doing tomorrow in class, is I made it widescreen, so our collaboration space was quite large. So I'm going to change that to 17 by 8, and you'll see that it fills the page, right? So I don't know if everyone saw that, but it filled the page. So that's what the first thing you want to be able to do is set that file, that page space. Once you've done that, you have limitless possibilities here. So I will show you quickly how you can change the background. And that's a simple mouse click with your right mouse button. Oh, sorry, I'm going to get away from that shape. And you'll click on background. So hopefully everyone's still with me and we're good. So if I click on the background, what's nice is Google has added a few more options. They've updated a lot of their things. They're changing some of their tools right now. But you can do a solid color background. Sometimes it's nice if you're, depending on what you're working on, you can do something with a gradient. So if you just click over to gradient. And another nice feature that they've just added is you can even customize the gradient. So if you really wanted to, you can start playing with this and the color that goes into the middle of the screen. So it just depends on whatever project you're working with. A small thing, but depending on what your students are creating, this can have a lot of impact. So the next thing I want to show you is if we're looking at an image, so a simple way, very quick and easy for our students, is if you wanted to add an image, you click on that little button that looks like 2 mountain peaks right from the toolbar. If you forget these tools, you can always click on Insert Image. So what's nice is they've got 2 options in Google. If you forget, click on Insert, it tells you everything. And if you get quick with your buttons, then you can use the shortcuts at the top. So I like to do, depending on what I'm using, if the quality is good and we're looking at, making sure we have copyright permissions, students can drop in a URL. Then we can use that for if you're using a GIF or GIF, however you like to say it. If in the case of that, you would need to cut and paste the URL that the picture lives at. But it's nice that you can actually do a search, a nice safe search right in Google. So if I wanted to search for an animal cell, if I was working in biology, animal cell diagram, let's say. What was great about these are we know that they're copyright approved, right? That these are okay to use, and Google has, that's why these are set up. So all I would do is search for that, and then I'm going to just drag and drop my picture right into my drawing. So now I've got this really nice, diagram that I might be using for, the students to label. It's got some labels already, of course, but we can do all kinds of things with this. And this is a nice one because it doesn't have a background. I can resize it just by dragging the corners. But we can also put borders, right? A simple border onto this picture just by clicking the line width at the top there. I can change the color of the border. Perhaps if, depending on what I'm using this for, I can change the type of border, right? So we can start to, customize. This could become a handout that they produce for class, something that they share, an infographic, which we'll talk about. But again, you can see that you can start customizing, right? Little tiny things like that. Another nice feature that they've added is if you click on Format Options, I don't know if everyone saw that, I'll try again. So clicking on the picture, and up in the top here, there are format options. We actually now can recolor the picture. So you can actually change filters, what they call filters, on your picture. So I just changed that picture from its standard color to a different variation, if it helps, right? So this could be something that could be useful to you if you're, depending on what you're doing the project for, but you can change the color of the picture that you've gotten from the web. Even the pictures that you insert yourself, you can apply these filters to. Sometimes, it depends on what you're using it for, you can create a reflection, so that's a neat little option too now that we've got. They've added quite a few details into formatting your pictures. So that's just something else to consider there. I'm just going to move this over. And what else did I want to tell you before we get into some samples? When we're talking about pictures themselves, you can change the shape of a picture. So I'm just going to grab another picture, and I'll just do that again by showing an image search. So let's say I wanted a picture of a ladybug. Let's see if it's going to load for me. Oh, I can't see. There we go. So I like this picture of the ladybug. I drag it into my drawing, but I want to change the shape of it. So as this is loading for me. Okay. So if I click on the picture, hopefully everyone can see my mouse here. I'm mousing up to the top here where there's the crop image. I don't want to crop the image. You can crop the image, but I want to mask it. So I can change the shape of my image, and we use this a lot with a lot of the photo editing we do in our class. So a simple thing, right, that can change just the dynamic of the picture. It can give you an idea of a portrait. So now I've got the ladybug has been shaped. I can still crop it within itself so that if I don't want so much of the background. And then I can still play with things like borders again. And I can still change, as I was showing before, I can change the color, the filter. Perhaps I want the whole background to be red, whatever it is I'm using it for. But as you can see, the possibilities are kind of endless. So I just wanted to show you some of the basics before we get into the other details and what these can look like. So hopefully everyone's going to be okay with that. I'm going to go back, take us back into the and now, actually, Mally, this is where I need your help because I can't seem to get back to the platform. I can't get out of my web tour. Oh, let's see here. Thank you, Mally. I couldn't find the button to get back. There we go. All right, so this is just an example of something that you could do to customize. What I did with my class just at the beginning of the semester with my grade 9s to just kind of build their interest, get them using the tool, get them, kind of invested in the class maybe a little bit. We do silent reading at the beginning of our class for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but I had them create customized bookmarks. So, it's something simple that you can do, right? But it's something that they walk away with and they love. So all I did was I took thank you, Mally, this is the example of the bookmark. I just took we did 2 inches by, I think it was 5 inches we set the canvas to. And by doing that, when they print them out for them, I actually was able to print them out in color. I was able to get to the laminator. So for my little class, it was a smaller class of grade 9s, everyone got a customized bookmark. And they loved it because they got to work with the tool, and they also got to walk away with something that they love to look at. So it's just a little bit, something simple with Google Drawing that can, create a little bit of interest and, gives them that ownership. So I just have a couple of those samples I threw onto the slide here of some of the bookmarks they made. So it was great too because I learned a little bit about my students, about what they were interested in, based on something very, very simple, right? Dragging and dropping pictures. They started getting used to cropping pictures, shaping pictures, right? Doing all the things that I was just starting to show you. And it was a great introduction into using Google Drawing. So just one simple, application for this tool. And if you, like I said, Mally has given an example there. So that's one that I used. I just made up about me, but you can actually copy and make a copy of that and then, use those parameters if you want to use that in your class. It's very simple. Another way I actually use this is I've actually use drawing as an incentive tracker. So one of the ways I use this is for Harry Potter, and I'll show you that in a moment. But you could use it for class data and make this drawing anything you want. Make this canvas into something customized for a unit you're doing, a competition in your classroom, maybe a school-wide competition. Because what's nice about it is you can update. It updates in real time. So as soon as they have the link, then this updates automatically whenever you update it. So this can be accessed from your class website. It could be a link that you post in class and they go back and check. And so this was great when I taught Harry Potter, because students could see, I put them in their houses and we could track their points. So if you actually take a look at this, you'll see there's even like a little spinning trophy in the middle, like a little GIF that spins. But what happens is every time the team was awarded points individually or as a team, then it would update, and they were always trying to check to see, who was winning, right, in a competition. So a simple use, but here's an example. Here's the example here that I'm talking about. But they know exactly who's on what team, and they were getting they got really competitive. But it was just a really simple way of tracking something in a text, right? So just giving that kind of combining that competition with the text that we were doing. Another one that why I use this a lot, and perhaps you've used it for this as well, is just creating handouts that are a little bit more, let's say, exciting. And handouts, when I say a handout, often I'm actually using these just online, and we're filling these out as a class or individually. But also I do print them. So what's nice too is it gives a little bit it adds that level of interest sometimes that just a regular handout might not have, because we can manipulate pictures in different ways and shapes. So you can actually build in a purpose, and students can see rather what you're asking them for with maybe a shape that actually guides to what they're supposed to be doing. So I have a lot of examples here for you. But so for example, we were reading the yellow wallpaper in my grade 12 class, and there's some tough questions. So I used it as an anticipation guide. So I actually printed this for them, but then we had a group a collaboration space online, and we just typed into this, which is nice, right? Sharing is so simple, and we can talk about the sharing feature if you're not comfortable or familiar with how to share it out to your class. But sharing this and then being able to have a space where we type into it as a class is so great, because we so quickly generate ideas. And these are just simple text boxes, right, but as a different shape. So they had to complete the I wonder statements for this story. Another one, which, for example, in my grade 12 class, this is tough material that, a lot of students are not necessarily, hyped up about, talking about Shakespeare. They're in my class because they have to be, but not necessarily because they want to be. It's one of those credits. So I try to engage in different ways, and this is one way, just using a kind of placemat. And this would be, see, think, wonder questions. So exactly what you've seen, what it made you think about, and now what you're wondering about. And it was a simple thing, but when I did this activity last semester, it actually brought a lot of interest, and it populated a lot of questions that I didn't expect to come out. So rather than asking, point questions, something putting your finger on it, saying this is exactly what I saw, they're asking bigger questions about difficult material. So just making it into a simple placemat, adding some pictures for direction, being able to add a title, gives it a little bit more perhaps meaning and a little bit more interest. So I did this again. This is just another example with Brave New World. So any reading, maybe a selection that you're working on in class is really nice, because students can come at it with, if you're just using a drawing, then they can type right into it, and you can put this online. And it's just a little bit more interactive than just, say, a doc, because you've got the ability to manipulate the shapes more and play with the space more with the canvas than you can in just, say, a Google Doc. Another example, tough text. This is, again, going back to Hamlet, but what's nice is I used questions and I used text boxes so that they would fill in those text boxes rather than just saying, I could have written these questions in a linear way, 1 to 5, and for some reason, because I put these pictures in, they all filled the space because it's just a simple way to kind of, bring some interest. But it's just using, again, these are all Google drawings, right? Turning that page into something a little bit different than, our black and white handout. Actually, I'm going to stop for a second and if there's any questions so far about what I've talked about, or if anyone has any ideas to share with how they might be using it as an anticipation activity. All right, so I'm going to keep going. So here's another place or another way I like to use this as a brainstorming space. I think it's great. Oh, thank you. I think it's Shazadi that said, you know, I'm learning. I'm glad that people are learning along with me. And if you have ideas, you know, just throw them out there. But what I love about this is that, you know, I'm only talking from an English standpoint, but I'm going to throw out some other examples for, you know, if it's science or different ways we could use this in other ways. I'm just curious because, you know, in English, I'm kind of limited in some of the things that I do, but I will be showing you some other ones. So as a brainstorming space, I think this is great because, as I said, sometimes tough material, talking about something like point-proof explanation, not very exciting for students.
Christina, I think you missed a question. Yeah. There was a question from Vicki that said, what do you mean by a live document?
Oh, okay. So thank you. Sorry, Mel. Yeah, I totally did. Okay, so by a live document, I mean that it's something that we can type in real time as a class, and that we can go back to and add to at any time. So when I say live, I mean that, you know, we can manipulate it in real time. And I'm going to talk about how we collaborate. So I'm actually going to get to that. I just saw that question. I will show you guys exactly how to collaborate with this and how we can all. So I'm actually going to get you guys to do this with me in a little bit. Yeah, Melissa, it does become a hyperdoc in essence, right? And that was funny because I think when I was talking in my last session, I talked about how I didn't know this term hyperdoc, but I had been doing it all along. And so there is this term for something that has live links. It's called a hyperdoc, but this is just something that they've given a term for. So not everyone has to have a laptop. Natasha just asked that question. It's just that if you have maybe one or two in the classroom, they can use their phones as well, or from the iPad, depending, as long as you have Google on the iPad, right? You have Chrome. You can have one device or enough for a class, and everyone can type into it. If we don't have access to computers that day, we use the front computer, and someone can type as, you know, we talk as a class. I don't have to be the lead in the room. The students can take over, and that's always nice. If we are working on something like this one here in front of you, so if they're working on a paragraph, I took something like a paragraph, which seems, I would say, pretty dry for students to do, but with this material, I don't know if you know Harry Potter, but in chapter 12, Harry looks into this mirror, and it's called the Mirror of Erised, which is actually desire spelled backwards. So it reveals his deepest desires. This is a bit challenging for students, so I try to get them into the idea of what is it that he really wants. So I can pinpoint, you know, the page numbers at the top here. I've indicated, as you can kind of, I'll see if you'll point with my pointer here, page numbers. I can give specific material, but I've actually used the shape of the mirror to kind of engage them in the content, what the actual content is linked to, and then I've actually used just a template for a point-proof idea that I created in a table, and then I can give them an example of a point, a proof, and explanation, and then they have to fill in their closing. This just makes it a little bit more palatable, I think, and then they hand in something that, you know, it's a little bit more fun. They hand it in to me online, and they've created, you know, by making a copy. That's all I had to do is make a copy of it. So they don't have to recreate this. They just type into the boxes that I've already given them. And Mally has put into the chat there. You can actually see my sample there. So it's nice because, again, adding in a picture, putting in a different colored background, using a table, these are all things that we know how to do, you know, in whether it's in Word or Google, but it's just now we have that extra element that we can play with. We can play with the canvas. This is now going back to the idea of live that was asked this question. So what I did was in this instance, I provided the link to the class in our class online page, but I've also just shortened the link with a bit.ly. I've done that too before, so students don't even have to log in. So I'll put the link up on the board and say go to this link, bit.ly, and then shorten the link, and then they can automatically jump in and start talking about the material. So, you know, we do this with chart paper, but I feel like chart paper always gets, you know, tossed away somewhere, doesn't get referenced again. This is something that we actually were able to go back to. Students here were dealing with a very tough scene, and then in Hamlet, but they had to debate. So they were actually debating back and forth in real time in class with their points and proofs, and they had to be quick about it because the other side was also coming up with a point and proof. So this document had the two sides to it, and they were working on this together, and they were kind of competing against each other in a debate. So they had to prove that Hamlet was either sane or mad in this part. And as you can see, there were some quality answers here. And they're learning how to support themselves, but it's just through a simple table that I set up through Google Drawing. And that's it. I've also used this to help them start off notes. So if we were, something that we might be doing in class where they want to create a group handout, and this could be a handout that instead of, you giving out the handout, you could have them co-create the handout. So this is the nice part about collaboration. And then what I would do for them is post it online, or I could print it off for the class already complete. So rather than handing out a blank piece of paper that often doesn't get filled out, if we co-create it, everyone had a job to do, everyone had to type in something, and then everyone gets the product of their work, and I would print it off for them. So that's another nice option, is that you're not having that paper go into their binders blank. They've actually had to take ownership of the work. So now we're actually going to get into the piece about collaborating so that everyone can walk away with, how do I now share this out with my class? How can I have them engage with this so we can have, many people, many of the students working together. And that's actually one way I've used this, is I've created a drawing for each small group before and had them comment within it, so they have a space to work in, and I can go back and look at it. So that's always the nice part too, is when I just make a copy, it's not like I have to recreate the thing. I'm just making copies and then sharing out the link with the students in smaller groups. So I'm going to show you how that works. So with commenting and collaborating, if you've worked with Google Doc and you've done commenting, or if you've done it in Google Slides, it's the same principle. They're always the same tools across, so if you're actually not familiar, this will be good for you too. So I will show you that. But you simply go to Insert in the toolbar in Drawing, and students can insert a comment. You just have to make sure that you set the permissions so that anyone can comment, and I will show you how to do this through a web tour in just a moment. So I thought about, again, I was trying to think outside of my English space. So here's an example for my science friends. Labeling a diagram. So this is, I came up with this template. Feel free to use it if you want, if it's of any interest to you. But it's, Mally's dropped it into the chat there. I just created this as an example for you to try out. And what you can do is students can manipulate the shapes and label each of the parts of the cell. And it's simple as they can just actually copy this arrow. They don't even have to recreate it. They can just copy and paste the arrow all the way down. And I just color-coded the arrow with the part of the cell that it is. So if they were to actually be using this, then we would be easily able to see what each part is. But there's a second piece to this. If you notice, the word mitochondria is actually underlined, and that's because I've made it a live definition. So what the students would have to do is label the part, go online and find the definition. But it's very simple within Google Drawing. So if we could, I'll actually take you to that right now, and you can see what that would look like. So we are going to try a web tour here. And hopefully everyone can see this. If you can just give a thumbs up that we're still back in the group. Everyone, sorry, can see my tour right now. Thanks. Thank you, Vicki. Stephanie's good. Okay, Martine, Robin, thank you. Okay. So what I'm going to do is if I click, if I notice here, I've got this arrow, and what I have is, you'll notice that a website pops up. This did not take much effort at all for me, because all I had to do was I typed in, and I'll show you right now what happens. This will take me to Britannica, and will give me, oh, I love the anonymous Kiwi. Thank you. It works. I appreciate you right now. Okay, so all I did was, I'm going to go backtrack and so you can see this. I'm going to actually delete the word mitochondria. I'm going to type it again so you can see this in real time. Okay, so I typed in the word mitochondria. I just click, I'm going to go to my, oh, I just lost myself here. Hold on just a second. Define mitochondria, okay? And you'll see here that it's actually got a definition. I can then insert a link, okay? And so if you notice, I'm going to do that again so you can see it. So I'm just going to highlight, I'm going to mouse over my word, I'm going to click over to insert, and you'll notice by just clicking on insert link, it already generated for me a Wikipedia search, and I have another definition here as well. The last time I did this, and if you say find more, it gave me the definition on Britannica. So all I do is click that and apply. Instantly, the students have put in the search for that term. They didn't even have to go outside of Google, and that's what I love about you know, Google's set of tools, is because they don't have to go outside searching and doing anything too rigorous to get the information that they need. So they could, I don't know the other parts, I forget some of my parts here. I know I have some science people with me. I think I remember the Golgi bodies and all that good stuff, but what would be really neat, right, and you can try this if you click on the link, you can join us in the space, but you can see how this works. You can create arrows, right, for these different pieces and label them. If anyone's game for it, you're welcome to come in and try. So if you're in the chat and you click on let's see here if we can get this. Oh, Mally, I can't get out of my web tour again. I have no idea why. I'm not sure how I get myself back up. Here we go. Okay. So if you want to click on that link in the chat, you can actually try this right now. You can see what I'm talking about and play with the drawing. I'm happy. If you don't worry about messing it up, that's not going to be a problem. So you can do that right now and give it a go. So I love some of the examples, Roman theater, noodle bowl, and try actually adding a link if you want to see what happens when you link on that. Oh, and we've lost an arrow there, so if you hit Control Z, we'll get our shape back. Oh, Martine, I appreciate it, your comment. Now we're actually adding comments. You can do that as well. So what you can kind of see here is the possibilities for collaboration because you're trying it right now. Taking something like a shape, labeling, adding commentary. If you want to try adding a comment, you're just clicking on that little plus option and then clicking on add comment. It's really quite simple for the class to become engaged in the work and have this as a space that they can co-create. The Grand Canyon, I love you guys, this is hilarious. Okay, so I'm going to ask you if you could come back to our main page and I'll show you some other applications. So if you're back with us in our main page. Sorry, Emily, that you're experiencing delay. Hopefully you can hear me. So if everyone's back in from our drawing, if you can kind of just give a thumbs up or a green check mark so I know that we're all together again. Hi, Cora, welcome back. I want to talk, so we just looked at, I actually jumped ahead of myself a little bit there, but we looked at how to add a live link. And what's really great about this is you'll see this in some other options that I'm going to show you, even talking about interactive infographics. So something I tried this year was creating infographics, but we'll get to that in a second. But we can add the layer where we actually make them interactive, right? Have them link to other content on the web. So it becomes what used to be called, back in the day, I guess a web tour or a web, what was it called? I think it was called web tour, not web tour, web quest. That was it. It was called a web quest. So that's, now we have a more sophisticated way, I guess, of doing a web quest, if you will. So live links really do make the content more meaningful, and students, and not just for the teacher, to give to the students, but the students to teach, the class with and create their own projects with. Now I'm a little bit out of my realm here, but just talking about the idea of formulas, graphs, and equations, this is a great space for formulas, graphs, equations. Working in terms of math, it can be used in different applications of math. This is absolutely a great tool. It does not have to be just for thinking about it as a drawing. I will show you the extent of my formula in English, and that would be I use a formula to teach the idea of a thesis because nobody likes writing a thesis. So I turn it into a formula so that my students who are very logical thinkers and would say, oh, I can't understand English, I turn it into a formula. So I did this with drawing. And so this is, again, another application that I like to use it for. This is a very simple formula, but there are ways that you can actually create your formulas. And we'll look at graphs in a second as well. The graphs are amazing that you can create. Easy to customize. They get stored in an Excel sheet. Really, really easy to use, and I'll show that to you. And I'm a person who is not really savvy with Excel, so for me to say that, take comfort in that, I suppose. So, and we're going to go to a web tour in just a second where you can take a look at, we're going to try this and show you how the graphing actually works. So options, if you can look at your screen, you'll see here, and I'm just going to grab my mouse, but some of the options you actually have are, you have a bar graph, you can do a column graph, you can do a line graph, you can do a pie graph, and if you've already created a spreadsheet for something in your class, you can actually import that data using your spreadsheet from Forms, right? So Forms in Google are the same as Excel spreadsheets. I'm not even going to attempt to go there because that's not me, but you can do that, and it's actually not too hard to do. So I will show you that. So just all you have to do is click on Insert in the drawing and click on Chart. You can also see there are diagrams. There are so many options here for us in terms of tools that we can access. I use a lot of the shapes myself. I use word art, but charts would be great if you're trying to maybe do some data collection for your class. You could be doing, maybe perhaps you've done a field trip and you're collecting information and you want to show that in a drawing. I know there seems to be limitless uses for this. And what you'll see when you do this, you can change. So automatically it generates this Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, Team 4, very basic information. But you can customize all of this in the spreadsheet. You can customize the color of the bar graphs. It's really, really quick. So what else will appear in the right corner when you have inserted a graph, if you mouse over the corner or click on the graph itself, it will give you the option to edit automatically, and you'll see that appear as soon as you drop a graph into your drawing. Okay, there it is. So you can see here, this is what it will look like when you're working within your spreadsheet, and it will, change the way that the information looks, and you can either do it, horizontally or vertically in the graph. So we're going to try this right now. So, oops, I've gone too far. There we go. So I'm going to show you what that looks like right now, and I'm going to, again, be able to get out, but probably not get back in. So I'll probably need sharing. Here we go. I might need Mally's help again. So I'm going to go back to the sample that I had for you. Can everyone see my screen? Hopefully you see my screen with the ladybug and the cell on it. If you can just give a thumbs up if you're good, or green check mark. Okay, great. So let's do this. If we're going to go to Insert, there it is. That's what we need to click on to create that graph. I'm going to create let's say, a bar graph. Okay, simple bar graph. And right away there it is. It appeared on my screen. So I want to go in and I can open the source. I'm going to start editing. Okay, and right away it goes into a Google spreadsheet. It automatically generates this for you. And if our screen will load. Okay, there we go. So now, when I start typing into my spreadsheet, I can change this. So if I want to say, group 1, let's just say. Okay, and so on and so forth. You can see it changing in real time, right? So you could do this with, you could have, individual student names, you could have team names, it could be class by class, let's say, if you're doing something at a school level. And this could be something, this could go into a flyer, perhaps something you're sharing with parents and other teachers. This would be great for so many different, applications where this just becomes one nice piece of a drawing that you create. So I could see this as a school letter, an information handout for, say, a course or something that's going on, maybe a class trip, maybe a fundraiser. So let's say, we want to say semester 1, let's say, versus semester 2. And you can see that this is changing in real time. If I make the number 10 versus 50, then you saw the bar graph automatically adjust. Hopefully everybody is able to see that. And if I click on the bar itself, I'm actually able to see the value. And you'll see that an editor popped up. I am not even going to attempt to touch that because this is not my area of expertise. But as you can see, there's a lot that you can manipulate in the columns themselves. You can with the data, and there's even customization here. Further customization. So this is, I'm not even, like I said, this is just all foreign territory to me, so I'd be using this on a basic level, but you know that it's already there, and you can change, like I said, the coloring in any of these, in any part of this. So now, if I go back to my drawing, I can see that I need to update, and there it is. You can actually see in real time that my graph has been updated to reflect the information that I was just talking about. I can resize this as well too, so I can make this graph, take up a significant portion of my drawing. So, Mally, I'm going to have to ask your help again to get me back out of here, if you could. Thank you. I don't know why I can't see that button when I go out. So does anyone have questions about the graphing? Or hopefully that was, the basics, but is everyone okay with that? Feel comfortable with that? Or if you have questions, I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so just to give you some other ideas here. So I've got, of course I've more for you. So I wanted to talk about the idea of interactive infographics. We know that our students encounter infographics all the time. They're becoming, of course, they're very popular. They've been around for a long time. But what I was able to find actually on the web was someone who had actually created some basic templates. So I provided those in the links that are all going to come to you. This is just one example of a pre-made that I guess this gentleman had made, so that's great. But I'm just going to show you some of the ones that we did in our classroom. There are lots of ideas for infographics. I know there are other tools that can be used to create infographics, some like PictoChart. The problem with something like PictoChart is that it does become a paid-for option, and that's why, again, I love Google Drawing, because there is no cost involved, and it's really up to you how creative you are with it. So, if you want to use one of these pre-made ones, I did have that link in there. I think there are like 5 or 8 templates that he included, and you just make a copy. So it's great, right? It becomes yours. You just make a copy. But I have some other ideas I can share with you from my own class. So what I just did with my grade 9 class, we look at the hero's journey as a big thread in our course. And so this goes through fiction and also through nonfiction. So after they had completed their calming activity on their hero and presented, I had them turn the 5 best facts about their hero, their real life hero, into an infographic. So this is actually all of my instructions. This is exactly what I gave the class in a Google Doc, and Mally has dropped this into the chat there. But you can see in real time, I've got my link. What I love about even Google Docs is you can link everything. You can do the same with the drawing. So you can see that I've got a link to either using a Google Doc or a PictoChart. I tell them exactly what they have to have. and that here, my teacher sample. So I always make my sample available so that they have something to go, start from. What's nice too is they always go off and running, and theirs always ends up looking better because they are very creative, right? Once they've seen something, to start from. And I linked it, of course, to my rubric. So you can see all of that. I've even given them a little direction. So if this is something you're interested in, there's access to that for you. So here's what came of that. This is my sample, and I think if you want to, you're welcome to take a look at this. I'll just explain what it is first, and then if you want to actually go in and click on this, then you can see what this document looks like in real time and not a screenshot. I used a sample for Oprah Winfrey, and what I did was I created using shapes like SVGs or PNGs, and those are just pictures without backgrounds. I made it look like an infographic, but the difference is when you click on my infographic facts, they actually take you to the information on the web. They actually link to that info, and that was just through what we talked about already, which is right-clicking, adding a link, and doing the search, and that's it, and it takes you right to that piece. So, Mally, I don't know if you have, I have my lesson plan. I do have my sample link. I'm not sure if let's see if I can actually quickly access it here. Here it is. Actually, maybe what I can do with you guys is take you on a web tour of this, just so you can kind of see what this looks like. So here we go. And I'm just going to click on that for you. So now you can see it in real time. And of course, I've got a few little, because we can, I've got some GIFs kind of floating around there, or GIFs, however you prefer to call it. But if I go over and mouse over for example, the 20 years, Oprah's television show ran for over 20 years. So that's a link to the actual information. So the students had to do this for themselves and link to information. So did you know, right? Simple things that you might want to know. This will, you can link a picture like YouTube, and then it will take you right to the video about her. Want to know more? That'll take you to the YouTube video. Okay, so again, this is the only real step to doing this is inserting the link and then putting in whatever it is the information that you want them to guide you to. So the students really took off with this, and I want to show you I'll show you a student sample right now. And the two that I'm sharing with you come from students that were, hopefully everyone can see my screen, students that were, I would say at-risk or vulnerable students who, weren't, very big into, they weren't comfortable presenting, but then when they saw and started working with this, they had so much fun working with it. They started saying, hey, Miss, can you show mine in the class? So they, it wasn't just for me to be handed in, they wanted to showcase their work. And I really, there's something to be said about, the pride they can take in creating these pieces. When you're not limited, you're not worried about spelling because, you've got spell check, and when you can create and you don't have to be artistic, you don't have to be drawing, it's not about paper anymore. There's a lot of, limitations sometimes to pen and paper, and with this, there's a lot of fun that can be had. So this girl in particular, she just kept working on this and playing with color and playing with links, and she had so much fun. Even her middle link here in the boxing ring links to a video. So she, took this and ran with it, and I just love to see how, passionate she was about, something that may look, maybe simplistic to us, but is very sophisticated, and it cost, her a lot of time. She had to really put in the time to find these facts and to, to link the information, but she wanted to do it. The difference was that she actually was engaged, and everybody in the class was actually really engaged in creating these. They really wanted to, to make something of it. So sometimes when we just say we want you to do some research, there's not that engagement, but a drawing can turn into, something like an interactive infographic. I'm going to show you, and what I do is I made student copies of these so you don't see the student names, but you are welcome to look at these because this was student work. I just created copies so that their names are protected. This one came from another boy. He was one of my, again, an at-risk student, but this class just loved his infographic. because, you know, he used the color scheme of, you know, Michael Jordan's team. All of his facts linked to, you know, something on the web, and he ran with it. He made his widescreen. Nobody else did this, that type of thing, right? So this was really something that he was passionate about, and it was just neat to see, right? A simple lesson, and then they ran with it. Mally, if you can be a deer and get me out again, thank you so much. Okay, so anyone have questions about those infographics, how to create those? So again, like that's just starting from scratch, right? Background, you know, choosing shapes, making it work for you. So, you know, students can really start to go off on their own with these, and they will surprise us, right, all the time when we let them. Oh, glad to hear, guys. So yeah, if I'm, you know, it'd be, you know, it's something that, you know, we, you know, take for granted as simple, but it's there for us, and we can, you know, students can have a lot of fun with this in groups or individually. We can create an infographic as a class. It'd be great to see this, you know, if you're doing like a trip somewhere. I'd love to see what that looked like, right? If you had a class trip and they had to create an infographic on what they, you know, what they saw on that trip. They can include video, right? You can actually upload and include links to your video, perhaps, from that trip, pictures from your trip. And you can actually upload really quickly from Drive if they're storing pictures in Drive, if they're using class iPads. So simple to upload, just one click, right, to upload. Yeah, this is Angie. That's actually something. This kind of where this came from for me too. Was, you know, publisher, you know, had died, you know, unfortunately. But that's where I started using this, and that's actually in some of the examples I'm going to show talking about magazine covers. So, you know, I was looking for something else, you know, other than publisher, and when I found this, I was, you know, so happy. So I'm just going to click through these because we've already looked at the live links of these. And I want to talk about how this can be used for inferencing, right? This is another great way that I've used in my class. I've found a lot of success. I think, you know, we know this as teachers. It's sometimes so difficult to get the hands raised in the class to get people to contribute. But when they have a computer in front of them, when there's a space that's, you know, could just be a text box, their answers grow, whereas they don't grow on paper, right? They're, you know, they're limited by pen and paper, whereas with the computer they're not. And something like inferencing, which we know is difficult for them, can be a lot of fun and can be less daunting when we use something like Google Drawing. So I do this with, and I've shared this before if you've been in my webinar, this is one I do with a character sketch. And so I did include my template for this. You can actually copy and paste this, make a copy. But rather than having students, you know, I have them look for character inferencing or doing a character sketch, but through visualization. So having to pair it with a quote and then a visual to go with that quote. Again, you know, a visual and a quote, and then the big idea is what did they learn from that? They had to make an inference. So this is my sample. I couldn't include my students because their names are in these ones, but what I found was the volume of writing, the thought that had to go into choosing the images. This is work that I wouldn't get if I just had them simply write a paragraph on what did you learn about your character. So, you know, using this as a character inference tool or a character sketch, you get a lot of information from this, you know, more than they would write, let's say, on pen and paper. So this is another way I get them to do, you know, higher level thinking without maybe knowing what they're doing, you know, or worrying about what they're doing. So this is just another example, right? A kind of like little, you know, template, you know, here throw in quote 1, quote 2, quote 3, quote 4, show how the character in Telltale Heart, I don't know if you know the short story, very creepy, but how the character becomes, you know, descends into madness. And so you can see how basic my template is here, but what I love is where this went for students in my class, and I did this with my applied students. You know, again, sometimes material can be challenging. They can find pen and paper very daunting. But then I got this, and I was thrilled. This is an example coming up here. So this was one of my students, and he went, you know, of course, above and beyond here. He linked the quotes, you know, to the picture, which is what they asked him to do, but then he even took it further and highlighted the words that kind of showed that inference. So you can see how, you know, mine, very boring. And then his, you know, of course, he's really understood the concept. I can see that he understands exactly what I'm talking about. And again, this was one of those moments where I remember he, students in class like, hey, like they all wanted to see what he had done, and he was proud to share it because he had organized this information in a different way, something that he was creating online and became very meaningful. Another way I like to use this, I created something that, again, in English sometimes we talk about the climax in the story. They don't quite understand, well, what is the climax in the story? This example, I was able to actually build in the idea, right, that I've used actually arrows to show that this is all building towards one moment, which is the highest point of interest, and why I created, and it turned it into, say, a triangle. And I've given a definition to them. So when I can provide this definition to them, then it's easy, right? It's easier for them to understand what is happening. So what I had them do in the template is provide 3 events that led to the climax of the story, and they had to decide on what that was. So again, just another way, by using something like a drawing, that it makes it a little bit more, digestible, I guess I could say, or palatable. They can kind of get to that idea, and because they have a drawing to kind of lead them that way, right? It's leading them to that idea. And if you actually look at the link to this, I hope I provided this link, but there, again, I've got like there's a GIF here, and it kind of, it's King Midas dipping his hands in the gold, and it just kind of adds some interest to get them, thinking about the idea, when did that moment change, that climax in the story. So because we have so much out on the web that we can, grab from, this is, it's limitless. It's what we can do with this. So I'm going to talk about a couple other examples before, and we'll have a little bit more time to play, and I'll go back in and do a little bit more touring with you so you can see the tool again, and have you, try out, the exact same things I was doing, like dropping in a picture. But I want to show you how we use this in our class in some other ways. This was, I absolutely was amazed by the student. I had them create a movie poster for a book that does not have a movie, the book that we were reading in the class. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with this novel, but this novel Malice, it's a dystopian novel, but it was for my college level students, and it's a mix between a graphic text and a regular novel. And it has no, I'm surprised actually that there's no film for this book, but it's very creepy. But they loved this, and they ran with it by creating in drawing. So imagine, doing something like a movie poster with your students. This is what one of my students created using drawing. I think it absolutely looks like a real movie poster. She layered in so many pieces, right? She found this image of the train is something that comes from the story, but this is not even from the story. She created this. She made it look like it was actually a very legitimate movie poster using, proper titles, using proper font style. And I go through this in class and show them, samples. But she even found, like the PG rating. She's, used the date that it's coming out. So she's gone through and really paid attention to, all of the little pieces of a proper movie poster. But this is the kind of level that Google Drawing can bring, right? So we can go from, I showed you very basic kind of drawings, and then we can have something like this, right, where you can create something that looks very professional. So it's not just, it doesn't always have to look like, just a simple handout. There's a lot of professional level projects that students can make with this. So, it's really about what the student can imagine, and so that's why I'm always amazed at what they come up with. So this is another example of an assignment we did with our 3U class, where they have to create a magazine cover for a magazine that would appeal to teens that's not about the physical or the outward appearance. It's about inner values. And so again, to me, this came from a Google drawing, and this looks actually like a magazine cover. So I've given you that example there. I've created JPEG of it for you, so you have a link to the student's work. But again, this was created in drawing, and it's not, it doesn't have to look, very comic-like or, amateur. It can look extremely professional, really based on how the student sees it, right? And what, what you show as an example too, I think. Really, it's about going back to, you're showing them lots of different examples from the web of what does a magazine actually look like, and speaking to those pieces. But this is what one of my students came up with. Another assignment that might be of interest to you would be PSAs, right? Public service announcements. We did this in one of our classes. We've done it in a couple of classes. This could work for many, many classes, right? In many different levels in elementary and secondary. But again, and I know this turned out maybe a little grainy here on my slide, but this is a student sample and really, really thoughtful. So thinking about, they've layered in a PNG, so a picture that has no background, using their text and titles. Okay, so which link is not working for people? I see that in the chat. I'll just pause for a second. Which was the last link? Was it the picture to the magazine cover? Was it this one here, perhaps? Yeah, okay, so I will correct that one. I can fix that one. I apologize. So here's an example of a PSA. So they did a TED Talk in our class, and they had to create a PSA that would support their side of their TED Talk. So for example, this one was that the music industry is broken, and this one student had so much fun with it. She actually was so proud to share this one. She said, "Sticking to old ways leads to trouble." I thought that was very clever. But she's, as you can see, she's had a lot of fun with this, and it looks like a PSA that we can actually put up, right? And it looks legitimate. And again, all of these are drawings. Here's another example, right, where you can use a photo and give it that real look, right? 2017, Balancing Work and Family Shouldn't Be So Hard. They talk about parental leave. This came from another TED Talk in our class, and she came up with this idea. So, they really can look professional, and this is all out of drawing, right? This can replace a lot of things like publisher, as we were talking about. I've got one other example there. This was just another PSA that came out of that class, and I thought it was very clever, right? She worked with drawing to do this. So, I mean, there are a lot of layers here, right? Thinking about color, making it look, legitimate, being able to insert just those small icons, all of these different things. So yeah, students got some of their images from Google search, and then a lot of the images they actually altered in drawing with different, like using a filter, using shapes. So they did work on them themselves as well. But they used it, yeah, they got a lot of their images from Google search. Now I will say this, Angie, sometimes the search within drawing is limited, so they had to go outside and then they just provided their works cited page. So I didn't provide a works cited here, but that they attached their works cited to their drawing because the Google search inside drawing can be very limiting. So if you're looking for more drawings, they'll have to do an outside search just in a web browser. That is one limitation of Google, like just the Google search within any of the platforms. So we're in a good spot here before we go back to looking at the web, just browsing and trying out the tool themselves. I'm not going to attempt to teach you how to do this, but there is a video tutorial, and there are actually several video tutorials. I just picked Justin Timberlake because, but you can actually go through and get a step-by-step vector drawing process on how to create. This portrait was created in drawing. So like I said, there is a level of sophistication that I am not comfortable with Google Drawing, but that can be reached with Google Drawing. And there are videos, so if you're game to try it with your class, these are the kinds of things that are available through this program. Mally dropped it in there, so that is a YouTube link. It is a very, it's a rather lengthy video, of course, because it takes a lot to do this. But and I've seen a number of these. There are quite a few of these tutorials on different to draw different portraits. But I mean, I would be totally interested to see how this can be done. But again, this is for perhaps another class. This is not really applicable to me in the English, but it is definitely interesting. I found it to be quite amazing. So what I want to do right now with the time that we have left, and this actually worked out pretty well, we have about 20 minutes remaining, is I wanted to go back and just have you to try this with me, just trying to tinker around in the web page itself and to ask questions in the chat. So rather than doing this through a a web touring because I want you to be able to type into the page. What I'd like to do is actually open up our collaborative space, which would be the OTF Google Drawing, and I'll just, we can drop in, actually I'll drop that link in for you. Because I do want to talk about, actually, sorry, before we do that, I'm going to take that back. Before we do that, I do want a web tour with you to show you, we didn't talk about how to share this, so I definitely want to show you how to share before I, kind of set you free here. So, for some of you, you may not know how to share a Google Drawing and how to set it up so that your class can collaborate. So I want to show that to you right now. And hopefully everyone can see my screen right now. So if you can just, if you're good here, if you can show me a thumbs up just to make sure that I've got the screen, that you can see the screen with me. Awesome. Okay. Great. Okay, thank you so much, guys. So if you're looking at my screen here, you'll see that in the top right-hand corner we have the blue share button. I've just moused over it now. You can see it says anyone with a link has access. But what I have here is I've set it to if I had not had this set, I would have to click on the Get Shareable Link button here, which I'm mousing over. I have to then change from the drop-down menu what I want to give permission for. And if you're a Google school, it will automatically show you the Google accounts right within your school. But if you're using this just as a one-off, as I am in my classroom, because I have to have students get their own Google account, or just if I don't necessarily have to have them have accounts, I can just share out my drawing and you come in anonymously, sorry. I set it to anyone can edit if I want them to edit. If I only want them, so this is really important, if I only want them to view because I don't want them to mess up the template. So if you've created a template, do not set it to anyone can edit. Set it to anyone can view. That's really important. So then once that's done and I copy this link out, if I wanted to share this, once I share it with my students, I've copied that link and shared it however I want to share it on a platform. If I want to shorten it with bit.ly, or if I just want to copy and paste it into our online classroom and share it that way, now all students have to do with their Google account, so they'll need to have themselves signed into their account, click on File and make a copy. And that's it, right? So from then on, if they make a copy, they're going to get an exact replica of whatever you've provided. And then they can make their changes to their copy. I do this because I don't want my teacher template touched, so I always set it to anyone can view. So that's really important for the sharing piece. So I'm going to change this to anyone can edit because we are going to go in and play with this in just a moment. But the other thing I think that's important to know is what you can do with this once you've, if you're going to print it, it's simple as, hitting the print button. But another option too is I just want to show you the download features. So you can download this as a PDF if you want to keep it so that it can't be altered. You can create it and turn it into a JPEG. So this would be really great if they're putting this into a slideshow. If they wanted to create a drawing of their own and throw it into a slideshow, if it's something you wanted to print and put up in the class, they can actually turn this into a PNG. So that's great because that's when you don't have that background anymore, and they can create their own shapes and add them into slideshows. So there's lots of possibilities here. And they can turn it into a scalable vector graphic as well. So these saving options make it possible for them to create their own shapes, something that you might find online, but now you want to customize. Well, now you can actually create your own and put it into your infographic or put it into your slideshow. So drawing then just becomes another layer to creating. So the other piece, again, is adding comments. A nice option for your class would be to then have them comment on something that you're working on in the class. And you could click on the comment button, and you'll see their name pop up. You can see my name there if they're signed in, or they would sign in anonymously. So I think if I were doing this as a class, I'd want them signed in to their accounts so I can see who's commenting to hold them accountable, right? That's that piece there. And I just wanted to go, I see on the chat there, so if you're setting this up as an assignment in Google Classroom, you can set it up so your students all get their own copies. Yes, so Angie, if you're using, and I'm guessing, Angie, you're a Google board, it's nice because it makes a copy, right? So you don't have to do that for them, but it's always nice, right, that you have that option, right, so that they don't have to go in and, they're not starting from scratch. They have it there. You've already created that for them, and that's setting them up for success. So what I'd like to do right now, if possible, Mally, if you can get me back out again, for the last time, I think, back into our browser. Here we are. So I'm going to, I think I have the link here. This should be the right one, to our drawing. I've just dropped the link into the chat there. If everyone can join me in the drawing, and then I just wanted you to be able to try out some of those features, right? Grabbing a picture, dropping it in, you know, looking for a link. If you want to grab a picture of something and actually link it to text on the web, just trying out those things so you feel comfortable. I want you to actually walk away and feel a little bit comfortable tonight. So just taking 5 minutes to try this. So if everyone could click on it and then just join me on the on that page. And I'm actually going to make our canvas bigger so that everyone has a chance to kind of have a space here to create. So there it is. It got a lot bigger for us. So yeah, grab a picture, play with the size. Someone's dropped in a nice heart here, and that's a PNG, right? That doesn't have a background on it, or an SVG. You can try reshaping the picture. So we've got another ladybug there. If you want to try reshaping the ladybug itself, you know, adding a border to it. Again, trying those live links, right? Trying to link it to text. And you can see that up on the Insert Link button at the top of the page. So, you know, it's really important, right, that you can actually start to see, playing with a shape maybe, right? Adding in a shape so that you can see what it would look like to add in text. Those kinds of things. Playing with the different color, you know, the backgrounds, so that you feel really comfortable when you leave here. And if not, oh, and I see some people added a nice little GIF there. We got a little puppy in the box. Right, trying these out here. So don't be afraid. Try and see if you can link it to something on the web, right? Adding in a live link for us. So you can see how this, you know, would work in your classroom too, having everyone working and co-creating at the same time. I'm going to get rid of some of the things I have on here. Thank you, Veronica's adding comments. Thank you. So you can see how that works too. The comment feature, we've got a little bit of everything going on here. And if you actually you know, are feeling okay and you want to ask me a question, please feel free to drop it in the chat. We've got a few minutes left together, so if you have a question or if you want to share an idea, a way that maybe you're using this in your classroom, I'd love to hear from you. So Stephanie is mentioning that you use it to mind map. Yeah, it would be. I think it's a great mind map, and maybe being able to make that an interactive mind map now too, right? Where you could add in other info to that mind map, right? It becomes a really nice space for mind mapping. For freehand, okay. So actually, there was the only. Yeah, you can scribble. So you could scribble by clicking on, but it's not as, Melissa, as nice as that in terms of like if they had maybe a pen on an iPad kind of thing. That I'm not as sure of, but they can do like a scribble, and I don't know if it could be. I'm going to try it right now actually. Yeah, the scribbling. I mean, it could become more sophisticated if they had. Like I'm using my mouse, and that's horrible, but. There is that, you know, the scribble is kind of an option that can turn into something better than what I'm doing here with my pile of lines. Oh, Emily, are there any ever issues with saving changes? I haven't, no. So actually, I would say that OneNote I actually find to be finicky. I find some of the Office products, because we use Office at our school, that's why I get a little bit frustrated with them. I find Google to be more reliable. I haven't really lost any work or had students lose work. The only thing I do tend to ask them to do is, you know, make sure that they don't, because this has happened where they've deleted somebody else's you know, picture or something, so I just have them say Control Z or hit back, because, you know, if there's a lot of people, and that's why sometimes it's nice to maybe limit, you know, to smaller groups depending on what the task is you're working on. If you're using it just to comment or like a Padlet wall, like a sticky note wall, then not too big a deal, right, to go back. But what's nice is as a teacher, you can always go back to your original post and you can look at the edits so that you can kind of get back to that original. But sometimes you can't really recover lost student work unless they go back and do it. So, but it doesn't seem to be glitchy in terms of not saving. So the saving part's not really, I haven't had a problem with the saving piece. Oh, the Scribble feature, Melissa, is it Melissa? Yeah, the Scribble feature, Melissa, is under, so if you click just beside to the right of the arrow in the toolbar, right now it should be default says line. I think it has like a little 2 dotted line, but just in the drop-down menu, you change the line to a Scribble. There's like polyline, curved connector, there's all kinds of things. So Scribble is just under, or where the line is on the toolbar there. Just hit the drop-down. Oh, and thank you for your lovely comments, everyone. I can see that everyone's trying out different things, so this is great, right? So, and if you click on people's links, you can actually see what they're linking their information to. So there you go. The rhyme for ladybug is linked to the rhyme, so thank you for whoever did that one there. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions, but as we're playing here, just keep trying out the tools, and you can, even if you click on the picture itself, I don't know if I got into this, but you can upload from your computer. You can get pictures from your drive, which is really nice if you've got it linked to like a class drive. And you can even take pictures with the laptop if you have laptop cameras, and just it'll insert it automatically. So if you have any questions, feel free to jump on the mic. But at this point, I just want to, if you want to come back to our page, I just wanted to thank you for joining me tonight and playing with drawing. And hopefully, you've walked away with something that you could try in your classroom, or maybe something a different way of adapting something that I've done. So I do appreciate it. Like I said, I'm not an expert in any way, but I do hope that helped you inform maybe something that you might be able to take with you. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Christina. That was really great. So many examples and lots of ideas for the classroom, and I'm sure things that people can take away right away, which is the exact purpose of what we're doing. So just a couple of things before we finish up. So one thing is we have, once you've finished with in the Blackboard room and log out, it'll take you directly to a survey link, or you can click on the link that's in the chat box, or the one that's on the slide. It's the only live link in the presentation, and that will take you to a survey that if you could fill that out, and it will provide feedback to Christina and to OTF and also the Ministry of Education. Once you've done that, it will then take you to a link that you can download a certificate for your professional portfolio. We have some more sessions coming up just up until the end of March right now, and then the sessions for April and May were listed, April, May, and June actually were listed on the OTF website yesterday, so please visit that to see what else you would like to participate in. I know that many of you are in multiple sessions. I do recognize quite a few names. And finally, there is some funding still available through the Ministry of Education for AQ courses in mathematics, technology, and kindergarten. So just before we leave, we can go back to the survey link, and very much appreciate if you could fill that out, and Christina will be provided with the feedback from the survey. And Emily, we're going to be emailing out all of the links that Christina's provided on a page, on a blog, and also the link to the recording, and everything's going to be archived on the OTF Connect's website. So actually, if you go to the OTF Connect's website, the links are there. They're live right now. So they'll be mailed out also in an email tomorrow, because there were lots of them, and I know that you'll probably want to go back and take a look. Excellent. Yeah, good. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we really appreciate all the time that Christina put into that. And you say that you're not an expert, but definitely